Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another 30-minute growth session where in 2024, we are on this journey with 52 amazing authors for 52 weeks. And I have to tell you, when I put out this call for 52 speakers, have been overwhelmed by the response because it was just a vision that I had in November of last year. And I have this saying, go big or go home. And so I'm going big with 52 authors. And speaking of big, guys, you are in for a treat today. I need you to get out your pen, your paper. I also need you to get your credit card out because you need this book. And this book is by Melissa Myers. And the title is Going Rogue: Unconventional Strategies, Financial Strategies for Women. Now, women, I want you to know we may touch a couple of nerves today because some of us, and I'm using us, we're in these situations that we're in because of decisions that we made, mindsets that we have, vicarious trauma from when we were younger. I think all contribute to the financial state that many of us are in. But Melissa Myers is going to tell you a little bit, just a couple of nuggets she's going to drop from her book. But first, let's have Melissa tell us about her background and how she even got to this point of writing this book. Hi, Melissa.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. I've really been looking forward to this opportunity and the opportunity to get to meet you because we were a virtual connection before today, and also to all of your audience and listeners. My path to where I'm at in the world today as a published author of two books and a business owner of two businesses definitely was not linear. I went rogue, and what what happened is I did the traditional thing, growing up, be good, get good grades, do some sports, graduate, go to college, do that all well as well, and then get a good job and start saving for retirement. What I didn't know is all of the many things I didn't know. I didn't have a lot of confidence in who I was as a person and where my talents lie and where my gifts were and what I actually enjoyed doing. Because in all of that, do all of these things advice, I never heard find what you love and the money will come. Enjoy what you do. And so I graduated, even though I'm in finance, I graduated with a biology degree.
Medical school?
Just a bachelor's. So my intent with the biology degree at that time, and this is this is if there's a takeaway for everybody listening, the key thing is to ask for help. And I went through much of my teens and early adulthood without ever having asked for help. So my degree in biology, I thought I was going to go on to law school and become an environmental attorney because I love my trees. I'm a tree hugger. I love the trees. I love nature. And I wanted to stop the deterioration. I wanted to help preserve our natural resources in our beautiful world. Well, one thing led to another. And 3, 4 years after graduating college, I was managing a restaurant. And one of my friends told me that she was going to apply for a job as a financial advisor. And I had no real clue as to what a financial advisor did or what that meant or what it would look like. And it was about that time that the restaurant I was managing, they told us that they were going to close it. And I had just bought a house. And I was tired of moving around from restaurant to restaurant. And so I thought, you know what? If my friend can do it, why can't I? And I can, and I did. So it was the degree that got me the interview because they didn't care, but in essence they did care because they know that persevering, getting a degree shows that you have the commitment to follow through, that you can test, that you can, be able to take it to the next step, which is exactly what you need to do starting out as a young financial advisor. So my route to where I'm at today is a little different than most, but I wouldn't change it for the world, because with all of those experiences, it led to where I'm at today and who I choose to serve as far as our clientele, and how we do it. That's really the whole thing with the book, is a different approach.
I love it. And I have this motto, no experience left behind. So all
Exactly.
the things you went through to get to where you are today contribute to the amazing person that you are and the amazing financial advisor, right? Because who wants someone advising them that hasn't gone through some things, right? That they portray that their life has been perfect. I don't want that person advising me, because if their life is so perfect, I'm wondering, and I think we talked before we started recording, that I just read the book Psychology of Money, and in the book they talked about the Bernie Madoff and just all the different schemes that people fall for, and so it's real, right?
It is real. And that, I like you, I think that every experience we have, it's a building block for what's next, and what's next decades down the road. I had no idea in my journey too. I didn't grow up with wealth. I didn't grow up talking about money, other than we never had enough, and why can't I just be happy with what I've got? And then there was some, shame messages, and um, not abundant messages, let's put it that way. And I did, this is really cool. About that time where I was transitioning out of the restaurant to becoming a financial advisor, my dad had left a sheet of paper on my countertop. And it was the message, the Charles Schwindel message, about how our attitude is everything. It's like life happens to us, right? But it's really how we approach it and what we think about it. And what I've learned, it's also what we do, because we can have great thoughts, but then it's the action behind it that really gets us to that next step. And I, not having a strong financial foundation, not hearing those abundant messages, not having a plan for the future, I had to go through that and experience the pain of that when it was my own responsibility, to be able to then begin to teach not just the investment piece, but the how to approach things and be prepared for what's next. There's things we want in life, there's things we don't want in life. Both of those require time and money. And so it was a really neat progression to be able to come from a place of, I've been there, I get you, I understand. I've done I always say I wrote the mistakes, all the mistakes. That's why I literally wrote the book, because I did make a ton of mistakes. But I'm on the other side of that now. Not perfect, but I'm in that place where I get to help other people experience the whole ability to just feel good about finances, because money is nothing more than a tool.
It
But
is.
it's a
It
tool
is.
that lets us help others. And that's part of the tagline in my book, is to be a blessing to others.
I love it. So I'll just tell you, I too got that quote on my desk. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact that attitude has on life. Charles Swindle. I will never, ever forget that. And it's like ingrained in my mind. And I think that there were points of my life where I lost sight of that. And I think I spent a lot of my adult life chasing wealth and money and things, but not really being responsible with the money and the things. But I've also, as an entrepreneur, have spent lots of personal funds trying to grow my business. And when I look back at some of I'm not going to call them mistakes. They were just lessons learned, right? And
Yes,
they're
absolutely.
lessons that we can use to help others, right? Because I can truly say I know what it likes to take money from the 401k to fund a business that I really should have been closing the doors instead of trying to continue to allow it to grow, because it wasn't growing. No matter how much money I threw at it, the doors needed to be closed. And so I can share that with others that I'm coaching and really help them make some different decisions and not experience those lessons that I learned. And sometimes it can be pretty brutal. I remember laying on the floor in the office crying, just thinking about why do I continue to do this to myself, to my family? And once I got to that place where I said enough was enough, I was ready to walk away. And when I did it, oh, the peace that I had and that I have is amazing. So I know some people are going to say, is this book about investing? And you make that very clear in the book that it is not an investing book, and you're not going to get pie charts and graphs and all these, things that make your head explode. It's really about you helping us become a better financial steward of our money. And I love how you open the book with a biblical scripture because I have a biblically sound life, and you talk about Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And that was such a powerful way to start the book. So tell us a little bit about why you wrote this book in the first place and what you intended it to do. Because Going Rogue is a title that's very catchy, like I want to know more. But then you also put in this little twist that it's a financial strategy for women. So why this book? Why do we need to go rogue?
Okay, lots of goodness in that question. There was a time in 2015 where I had the opportunity to get outside of my comfort zone and attend a seminar, we'll call it. It was like this big, huge multi-day seminar. And I started to pick up trends, and I was noticing commonalities amongst the attendees. Many of them were self-employed or in sales. They were business owners, they were entrepreneurs, and they all had something in common, and it's that they had individual clients, and they also had the ability to, instead of working just one to one, they were able to work one to many. And I kept thinking, oh, well, that would be neat, or that must be nice, or how could I do that? Well, you can't, Melissa. And I had all this negative self-talk going through my brain. Like, you can't work one to many and talk about finances. Like, that's personal, it's private. You've got the confidentiality factor, etc. Well, I thought, I'm not exchanging information with others other than in one direction. It's not two ways. I could do a book. And then I thought, well, what am I going to write about? And then I started to learn all of the things you learn as you think about writing, who your target audience is, and what are you teaching. And I had no idea, because I just did what I did intuitively in terms of working one-to-one with my clients. What I started noticing when I really started looking at the trends and the new clients that were being introduced to me was that many of them were women. Many of them were single women. Many of them were women who, despite their degree and their awesome job with a high six-figure income, they were starting to feel stressed and trapped about money. And you might be thinking, my younger self would be like, oh, if I was making six figures plus, I would have no cares in the world. But that's not necessarily true. And then as I recognized who I continued to serve in that one-to-one capacity, I started to notice that there was commonalities in the questions that they asked, their concerns, what brought them frustration. And that's where I realized, okay, you do have something here. So if there's advice I can give to anybody who might think they have a book inside of them, or they're maybe even feeling a little bored in their job, it's to look for those trends and look for where those places where you're starting to get bored actually are opportunities. You just have to reframe them.
Oh,
And yeah.
love it.
So,
I love it. Keep
so
going. I love it.
and then, there's tons of stats out there in the world about the number of the trillions of dollars that are going to be transferring in wealth from one generation to another. And unfortunately, most women, if they're married, even if they're not yet married, they'll either be divorced or they'll be a widow because their partner will pass. And if you don't have a strong financial foundation, the burden is there, the overwhelm, the stress, the anxiety about making the right decision. And what I like to say now is that books are great because there's a wealth of information in there. In my book, I wrote it to be easy reading, so you can read it just for entertainment. If you've got nothing else to do, pick up the book. If you're wanting to have a resource, there's tools inside of it where you can journal and you can reflect. There's a free workbook inside of the book at the very beginning. Make sure you grab that because that's hugely valuable. And the whole thing with the book is that books are great. They can be a resource. You can come back to them later as a reference. But what books won't do is hold you accountable, and they don't provide customized advice. And so that's why I use it as a way, it's a tool to build a strong financial foundation for clients that maybe already are in our world, but it's also something to give support to people who are just trying to figure things out either for themselves or because they've had that responsibility thrust upon them and now they know they need to figure it out. And geez, if you can have that foundation built before you need it, then it makes everything that happens later in life, be it a good or a bad situation that comes up, it just makes it that much easier to navigate.
And it's stressful when you're in the situation trying to climb out. It's very stressful.
Yeah.
I actually see this as a book that can be read during a women's group or discussed during a women's group, and really allowing women to shed some of the fears and the situations that they've gone through. And then they say, all right, it's time to call Melissa and get on the right path. Right after you have that, maybe that glass of wine with the women's group, and just discuss the things. And now it's time to move forward. Now it's time to put it into action. So in the book, you talk about event, response, and outcome. And that was when you say easy read, definitely an easy read. I didn't need a degree in finance to understand the book. An everyday person like me was like, yeah, this makes sense. And I love how you put in there about your values, your core values. I think many of us don't realize that we need to have some values. We work for organizations where, yes, they're paying us six figures, but we're executing their strategic plan. We're upholding their mission, their vision, their core values, but we don't do the same for ourselves. And then we find ourselves in a situation where we are a widow or have some type of financial tragedy that we don't know what to do to start over or what's next. So establishing personal values, I am a huge proponent of having an annual personal strategic plan where I'm setting goals for myself so that I can look up next year and say, whoa, self, you did that, right? But I didn't do it alone. I had accountability partner or partners. I have a community that's keeping me honest. So one of the things I'm so excited about with 52 authors, 52 weeks is that next year, I want to be able to see where are they? Where are we all on our own respective journeys and how we've impacted the world. So I'm excited about just life in general and those that I serve, those that I come in contact with. So I'm going to stop talking so you can tell us more. But you talk about mindset in the book, but you also talk about awareness being the first step. Why is awareness the first step?
It's kind of like a GPS.
Hmm.
Your GPS tells you where you're at. You have an idea of where you want to go. You have to plug in the coordinates. So you're taking action. Then you actually have to do the thing of driving or walking or biking to get where you want to go. And that's like in our lives, you might set, I talk about big, hairy, audacious goals. And
Yes.
you might, depending on how you're wired, some people can think big picture and then never take action. Other people just need to like stair step it and then look back and think, oh my goodness, look how far I've come. So the whole thing about goal setting is believing that you can do something and knowing why you want to do it so you keep going ahead. And you had mentioned that the going rogue. Like what is that all about? And part of it is the first 3 chapters of the book. And this is to put everybody at ease who thinks they're going to have those charts and graphs, because it's a finance book where I'm going to tell you to start with a budget. We tune into the values, and we turn into finding out, like, just thinking during the day, how can I catch myself with my thoughts? And if I had to put them into proportion, how many of my thoughts in a day are positive, healthy, good thoughts? How many of them are horrible thoughts, like things you say to yourself that you would never say to your mom, daughter, best friend? And when you, that awareness alone will help you start shifting them. It doesn't mean they're gone completely, but then you can start to think in a positive light. And I I really have a heart for getting people to think differently about their money. And their money is their money can help them get to a different place, or it can keep them right where they're at, or even in a worse position in terms of their relationships, their ability to make an impact in the world. And when you were talking about the excitement and what you're looking for in the next year after you've interviewed all 52 authors, like, that energy is magnetic, and then it's also contagious. and and when there's more people doing more good and celebrating each other's successes, then everybody wins. And I think it's like neat from a perspective of looking backward years down the road. We're never, decades, hundreds of years, centuries, we're never going to know what our impact was, but we can be present in this moment, knowing that what's on our minds and where our expertise is, where our passions are, that can have a lingering, lasting effect. And so that's what keeps me going, and that's my motivation. But knowing that when it comes to personal finance, you do need to look at the numbers. And when you know your numbers, it can relieve so much anxiety. And we just met with a client yesterday who, she wasn't exactly on board for several months of looking at her numbers, but boy, oh boy, when she did, she goes, I actually enjoyed that exercise. And you know why? Because she realized in some areas where she thought she was overspending, according to her own self-perceived ideas of what was appropriate, she realized she wasn't. And then in the other areas, she realized that she can make some adjustments. And then the real thing is that she found extra money, a lot of extra money in her monthly cash flow. Subscriptions that she wasn't using. She took herself to the cell phone store and got her bill adjusted, got more benefits at a lower fee. So just taking some time to dig in, look at those numbers, that's where you can start to get traction, especially if you're having like negative self-talk, like I can't afford that, or I could never pay cash for a car, or I can't ever pay off my house. Because what happens is the more money we make, the more we spend. And typically the way our society is cultivated nowadays is to buy the payment. Oh, how much of a payment can you afford? And everything's, a subscription or a payment. And when you start to tune into what your values are, then you can make a values-based decision. Is this congruent with what I want for my life long term? Does this make sense for me? Is this expenditure derailing me from my long-term goals? And I will tell you, I like cars. I like cool cars. I like luxury items. And chapter 11 is all about lux and doing the splurge. So I'm not wanting to withhold that from anybody, but sometimes you have to put a little pause on spending until you get clarity about what is important to you in your life. And are you detracting from what you want long-term with being maybe over generous with yourself in the present?
Yeah, and I think sometimes we use the word self-care as an excuse for buying all of the expensive things. Well, I'm caring for self so I can have this fancy purse. And my husband and I were recently talking about someone we know that has been saying for years that they want a house, but they are wearing their house
Oh, I
via
love it that you say that.
purses and clothes. And it's like, you can get the house, but you have to give up some things that really maybe they're filling a void that you don't even recognize is holding you back, right? You want to be on Facebook with your fancy purse, right? Now, don't get me wrong, because I don't like fancy cars. I'm not really into fancy cars, but I love jewelry. I love purses. Not really clothes so much. I mean, I can get everything I need out of Macy's. I don't have to go to fancy places, and I'm on the sale rack, the last act, final call, whatever they call it, right? But some people are defined by the things, and the things that they are accumulating can't get you out of trouble when you lose your job, right? They can't get you out of trouble when you have a huge medical bill. I was in the emergency room 3 times January 2024, and now I have all of these doctor bills, right? But you better believe I'm going to call them and say, hey, yeah, I can't pay all of that, but I can pay. And you know what? They'll say, okay, because them getting something is better than nothing, and they're willing to negotiate. But you also talked about looking at your numbers. So on my computer and phone, because I'm an Apple girl, I have all of my debt listed, when it's due, right? So lots of credit card debt from entrepreneurship. But I'm also looking at, like you said, cutting all of the subscription services. You don't need that. Cut, right? But taking that first step of looking at your numbers is so scary for folks, which is why I put mine on my phone, because I'm going to be on my phone every day, 7 days a week. And I look at that list. And as I'm transitioning into this different place in life, for me, my financial wealth is important. And not that I'm trying to be rich, but I'm trying to be in a place where I can have more time for me to just sit by the fireplace and read books, not necessarily take expensive trips. I love expensive trips. I think it's cool to go to places, right?
Right.
But you go to these places for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you come back home and you're in debt. So do you really need to go to the place today, this year? Maybe you can go a couple of years from now, right? Because you can get your mind and your body and your soul together. And so for me, moving towards this stable part of my life, to me, is first of all what you should be doing at 50. You shouldn't be making the same mistakes at 50 that you made at 25 and 30. But I realized that having a large sum of money is not the end and be all for life, right? I want to have physical health, wealth, as well as financial health, because I want to be able to buy my grandkids things and just really continue to help them grow, right? Help them with college and not be in student loan debt like I'm in. But knowing where you stand is important, but it's scary. It's very scary, especially when you've been swiping away at the store. And something that you mentioned was on the news, and I don't know if you saw this recently, but the news here in Chicago was talking about what do you call it? It's when you can buy now, pay later, 3 or 4 payments, and a lot of people don't understand the terms of those arrangements. But it is becoming more and more popular in high-end stores. And so what message is that sending to us? Oh, you want it? You can have it, but you're going to pay later, and you're going to pay heavily.
Yeah. The you either pay now or you pay later. And if you make a mistake, you're gonna really pay later.
Like really pay, where it's going to be stressful. And
Yeah.
you're going to look over at the thing and say, was it really worth it? So
Hopefully there's that lesson.
hopefully, and I'll tell you, it's a lesson that I'm still embracing, because even though I don't like a lot of things, there are things that I like, and I'm just learning. I have to have conversations with myself. Lisa, Lisa, you don't need that. Why do you need that? What's the root cause of why you need the thing, right? I think about the things that I have in my closet that I don't even pull out. Maybe I pulled out once or twice. That money could have been placed in, a savings account where I'm saving money, where I have the 6 months of expenses in a bank account in case the thing happens. I mean, COVID happened and artificial intelligence is taking over and it's going to be really the bottom of jobs are going to fall out. And so, will we all be ready financially to put food on our table? Those are things that I'm not going to say keep me up at night because I go to sleep at 9 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. But those are things that are in the back of my mind about how are we going to survive in the future based on decisions that we make today.
Yeah, and I think that the way we survive is by shifting our current mindset and behaviors and thinking about the what ifs. And it's not just what if something bad happened, like what if, and finding ways to make more money and to share our expertise. And there's money behind our experiences and our expertise. And I'll say that the sunny day fund concept is in the book, and I encourage everybody to think about using that strategy where you put money into different buckets. It doesn't have to be a paper envelope with cash. You know, you can do electronic envelopes, you can do a hybrid and have both. But the electronic envelope idea, it helps you go on that vacation and not have the credit card hangover. And it also helps you when your oven goes out and the fridge goes out and there's a medical situation. You know, by having those dedicated funds, it really does help take the stress off of the fun that you thought you should have. And then you realize that you didn't like the financial cost of it. But when you have that money there, then it tells you it's permission to go ahead and book that vacation.
And I something I read in the book recently, we talk about if something happens, it's really not if, it's when it happens.
Yeah.
So one of the things that my husband and I are doing this weekend, he doesn't really know we're doing this, but what we are doing is on my little paper or electronic paper that I have our my credit card bills on. I also have our household bills, and one of the things that I want to make sure that we confirm is that we have the 6 months of money in our savings account. And if we don't, what do we need to do to get there and get there fast? Because COVID happened fast, right? It just came in and took over.
Yep.
And so we don't know what the next big thing is, but we definitely want to be ready. And one part of your book that I really, really, really love is the giving part. I am a giver. And again, you start off with the scripture, too much is given, much is required. It's not always money, but giving of your time, right? Giving of your expertise. Everything should not be transactional. I am big into transformative experiences because all the other things that are designed for me to have, I'm going to have them because I've been a giver.
Yes. It will come back to you.
It will. So, if you had to wrap up our conversation today, by first, we must tell everyone where to find the book, where to find you, but one final word of wisdom. So, where to find the book, where to find you, one final word of wisdom, and then we'll wrap up today.
Okay, great. The best place to find me is our website, which is melissamyersgroup.com. And Myers is Myers. So melissamyersgroup.com. You can read about our business. You can buy a book there. You can book an appointment. We have a free 30-minute welcome call to all of your listeners because we have ways that we can help people. And some of the times it's maybe not what we do. Maybe somebody needs an estate plan. We've got people, we can get the connections going there. So we would like to be a resource and be helpful, but we also do things like you mentioned book clubs and getting ladies together. We run book clubs. We do have a Passport to Financial Freedom class that goes along with the free workbook inside of the book. And we also do mentorships and masterminds, as well as working one-to-one with our financial planning clients. So there's lots of ways to plug in, but instead of trying to figure out where you fit, just give us a call and have a conversation. That's easiest. You can stay connected with us on the socials. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Ask Melissa Myers.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, we are all going to work on taking that first step, being mindful. And as you say, being mindful and intentional we will all be in a better place. And it doesn't, it really doesn't take long to turn your finances around, but you got to admit that you need to turn them around. You have to face whatever state you're in, whatever your status is, you got to face it head on because it didn't just appear on its own. You were on the journey when it happened, and you may have made the journey be a little bit more um, to be larger. But if you just take that first step, knowing that help is there, knowing that someone cares about you and your future of your family, your what you leave behind, your legacy, someone is here, and that person is Melissa Myers.
May I leave a last tip?
Sure.
So the tip that I will leave all of the listeners is related to the intentionality concept. By looking at your numbers and looking for that runoff, it doesn't matter if your net worth is 100,000 or 100 million, there's always runoff. There's always money that just kind of evaporates and isn't having any attention paid to it. So by identifying those places like a subscription, you could cancel that subscription. Let's say it's a $10 a month subscription or a $1,000 a month subscription, doesn't matter, but you can intentionally redirect it by setting up systematic transfers. So identify, decide what is in alignment with your value system, and then put a systematic transaction in place that will happen repetitively over time so that you no longer have to think about it. It could be a donation to your favorite nonprofit. It could be paying down a credit card bill that's been lingering around longer than you care to admit. So I love the idea of redirecting money and then doing so in a systematic fashion.
I love it. And so I will just add, recognize that you need help. Help is just one click away by getting that 30-minute call. Sometimes it's just taking that first step. Fear is holding you back from taking that first step. But as you all can see, Melissa is very easy to talk to, and she understands what you've been going through and where you need to go to, and she can definitely help you get there.
We'll help you get there. We love to help people feel good about their finances.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and being one of the 52 amazing authors. I cannot wait to see where you are in 2025. Once I get to the end, I've been praying about what's going to happen in 2025. You got the 52 authors, 52 weeks, but do I do a where are they now? Where are we now? Where are the listeners now? I know that I'm going to have this vision while I'm sleeping, and I'm so excited about all of our futures. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.